My life was pretty standard, you know. I had a decent job as a graphic designer, a cozy little house in the suburbs, and a wife named Sarah who I thought was my partner in everything. We had been together for about 8 years, and for the most part I'd say we were happy. Sure, we had our disagreements, what couple doesn't? But overall, I thought we had built a solid life together. That was until things started to shift. It began with the little things. Sarah was always on her phone, but I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was just busy with work or social media. But then I noticed her being more secretive. She used to leave her phone unlocked. Now it was always face down, and she'd quickly swipe it away if I got too close. One evening, I came home to find her in the bathroom, phone in hand, whispering. I could barely hear her, but I caught the tail end of a conversation that sounded a lot like flirting. My gut twisted, but I tried to dismiss it. After all, I trusted her, right? But the signs kept piling up. She started going out. More with her friends, claiming they were having girls' nights. I didn't think much of it, at least not at first. I mean, women need their time too, right? But when she began coming home later than usual, reeking of cheap cologne and alcohol, my heart sank. Something was off, and I could feel it in my bones. The usual warmth of our evenings together turned into a cold silence filled with unspoken words and discontent. I decided to confront her one night after she came home at 2 a.m. I was tired of the uncertainty, tired of feeling like I was losing her. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady but feeling the tremor of anger bubbling just below the surface. She rolled her eyes, her typical response to any serious conversation. "What now?" she snapped, her tone biting. "Are you seeing someone else?" I blurted out, my heart racing. The look on her face was priceless, a mix of shock and that all too familiar irritation. "Why would you even think that? Are you insane?" She shot back, her voice dripping with disdain. Her denial was so quick, yet deep down, I could sense the truth. I pressed her further, and she started to weave a web of lies, talking about how I was paranoid, how she loved me, how I should trust her. It was all bull, and I knew it. The confrontation left me reeling. I stormed out, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. How could she do this to me? I was shattered. Over the next few days, I turned into a detective. I started going through her stuff, emails, social media, everything. I needed proof, and when I found it, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I stumbled upon a series of text messages with a guy named Tom. They were explicit, filled with allusions to secret meetings and stolen moments. My heart raced with a mix of rage and betrayal. I had what I needed. I confronted her again, flinging the phone in her direction. "Who the hell is Tom?" I demanded. Her face turned pale as the reality of her lies washed over her. She stammered, trying to come up with excuses, claiming it was just a fling, that I had pushed her away. The usual manipulative tactics. I could feel the anger surging through me, a tidal wave ready to crash. "You're a liar, Sarah. You've been cheating on me, and you expect me to just accept it." I yelled, the weight of betrayal heavy in the air. She tried to apologize, but the words fell flat. I felt like I was watching her from a distance. The woman I loved had morphed into someone I barely recognized, a stranger with a deceitful heart. As the night wore on, I had no idea how I was going to deal with this. My head was spinning. I told her I was done, that I wanted a divorce. I felt sick to my stomach, but I was resolute. The betrayal was too much. I couldn't believe the woman I had trusted was capable of such deceit. But then, just as I was about to leave the room, something unexpected happened. Sarah's expression changed. She looked scared, almost vulnerable. I didn't know what that meant. My mind was so clouded with anger that I just walked away, but I had no idea what the next day would bring. The following morning, I woke up to an empty bed. Normally, I'd chalk that up to her sleeping in, but the air felt different. I got up, rubbed the sleep out of my eyes, and started to look for her. My heart raced as I went through the house, calling her name. There was no answer. I checked her phone, no messages, no signs of her anywhere. Panic set in, and then I got the call. My heart dropped when I heard the voice on the other end. "Is this Mr. Thompson?" the officer asked. I could feel my stomach drop as he continued, "We need to speak with you about your wife." My mind raced to dark places. Did she get into an accident? I could barely breathe as I asked, "What happened?" "Mr. Thompson, there's been an incident involving your wife and a man named Tom. He's dead." In that moment, everything shattered into pieces. The world around me felt surreal. I was left standing in my living room, the pieces of my life falling to the ground like shattered glass. I couldn't comprehend what I had just heard. The officer's voice echoed in my mind, but I felt detached from the words. Your wife is missing, and we believe she may be involved in a serious incident, he continued. The reality of the situation settled like a heavy stone in my stomach. I struggled to process the gravity of what he was saying. My heart raced as I tried to form thoughts through the chaos. Missing? What do you mean? I stammered, my voice cracking. Tom was found dead at his residence under suspicious circumstances. We need you to come down to the station to discuss what you know, the officer said. I felt like I was in a nightmare, but I couldn't wake up. All I could think was, this can't be happening. Sarah was missing, and the man she had betrayed me with was dead. I couldn't fathom how quickly my life had spiraled into this dark reality. I hung up the phone, my hands trembling. I felt a mix of fear and anger, a whirlwind of emotions battling inside me. I didn't know if I should be relieved that she was gone or terrified of what that meant for her. What kind of trouble had she gotten into? My mind raced back to the texts, the lies, and the betrayal. What if she was innocent? What if she was guilty? The uncertainty gnawed at me relentlessly. I grabbed my keys and rushed to the police station, the morning air cold against my skin as I stumbled into my car. My thoughts raced, spinning in circles, trying to make sense of the chaos. I parked and hurried inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The officer who had called me, Officer Jenkins, greeted me with a somber expression. Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming in. Please take a seat, he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. I sat down, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. Can you tell me what happened? What do you mean Sarah is missing? I asked, my voice shaky but determined to get answers. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. We found Tom's body early this morning. The circumstances surrounding his death are suspicious, and we have reason to believe your wife may have been involved. We've been trying to locate her. Why would Sarah be involved? She wouldn't hurt anyone. I protested, overwhelmed with disbelief. The thought of her being capable of violence was unfathomable. Mr. Thompson, your wife was seen leaving Tom's apartment late last night. We also found evidence that suggests she may have been there around the time of his death. Officer Jenkins explained, his tone serious. I felt a chill run down my spine. Evidence? What kind of evidence? She left behind a few personal items, a scarf and a phone charger. We also have witness statements confirming she was there, he said, his voice steady but devoid of sympathy. Are you saying she killed him? That's insane. My voice rose, frustration boiling inside me. We're still gathering information. It's too early to jump to conclusions, he replied, but I could hear the unspoken words. They were treating her like a suspect. The gravity of the situation hit me harder than a punch to the gut. I was torn between disbelief and anger. How could Sarah have gotten herself into this mess? I felt betrayed all over again, but this time it was layered with confusion and fear. I wanted answers, but I still didn't even know where she was. Do you have any idea where she might be? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. We're trying to track her phone, but so far there's been no activity. If you hear from her, please let us know immediately, he said, his expression grave. I nodded, still processing everything. The officer handed me a card with his contact information and asked me to wait in the lobby until they had more updates. I sat there, staring blankly at the floor, my mind racing. I was suffocating in a whirlwind of emotions, grappling with the betrayal and the fear for Sarah's safety. I thought about our life together, the laughter, the plans, the dreams we had shared. How had it all come crashing down? I felt a pang of guilt for the anger I had towards her, knowing that she might have been in danger. I could still remember her face, the way she looked when I confronted her. There was something in her eyes, a flicker of fear. Was it fear of being caught, or was it fear of something much worse? As I sat there, time slipped away. Hours passed before Officer Jenkins returned, and when he did, I could see the concern etched on his face. We've got a lead, he said, his tone serious. We think we might have located Sarah. Where is she? I asked, my heart racing. She's been spotted at a diner a few towns over. "We're sending officers to bring her in for questioning," he said. I felt a rush of adrenaline. Part of me wanted to rush to the diner to see her, to know what was happening, but a larger part of me felt paralyzed by the uncertainty of it all. "Is she in trouble? Will she be arrested?" I asked, my voice trembling with worry. "We don't know yet. We need to speak to her first before we can determine the nature of her involvement," he explained. I nodded, my mind racing. I had so many questions, but I felt utterly helpless. My world had been turned upside down, and I had no idea how to navigate this new reality. Everything I thought I knew about my wife was now in question. As I left the station, I felt a mix of dread and determination. I had to find out the truth about what happened. I had to know if she was innocent, or if she was as guilty as the evidence suggested. My heart was heavy, and the shadows of betrayal loomed large. What would I do when I saw her? What if she had something to do with Tom's death? I had no idea what the future held, but one thing was glaringly clear. My life would never be the same again. I drove to the diner in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as I navigated through the early morning traffic. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and fear. I couldn't shake the images of Sarah with Tom, the intimate moments they'd shared, and now the haunting thought of her possibly being involved in his death. How had everything unraveled so quickly? When I finally arrived, I parked and scanned the area. The diner was a small, inconspicuous place, the kind where the smell of coffee and greasy food lingered in the air. I stepped inside, the bell above the door jingling as I entered. The atmosphere was casual, but my heart raced with anxiety. I looked around, hoping to catch a glimpse of her, but my eyes fell on a table in the corner where a couple of police officers sat, their expressions serious. I approached them, my stomach churning. "Where is she?" I asked, barely able to keep the tremor out of my voice. Officer Jenkins looked up, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. "She's in the back with another officer. We're asking her some questions," he replied. "Is she okay?" I pressed, trying to suppress my rising panic. "For now, yes, but you need to prepare yourself for what she might say," he warned, his tone grave. I nodded, my heart sinking. The uncertainty was suffocating, but I had to see her. I had to know what was happening. I was led to a small, private room at the back of the diner where Sarah sat across from an officer, her face pale and drawn. The sight of her sent a wave of conflicting emotions crashing over me. I wanted to rush to her, to pull her into my arms and tell her everything would be all right, but I couldn't forget the betrayal. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady but laced with hurt. She looked up, her eyes wide, and for a moment it felt like I was seeing her for the first time. The woman I loved was there, but so was the stranger who had betrayed me. "Mark," she replied, her voice shaky. "I didn't think I'd see you here." The officer in the room shifted uncomfortably, giving us a moment of privacy. "I need to know what happened, Sarah. I need you to tell me everything," I said, my voice firm but tinged with desperation. She hesitated, her eyes darting away. "I don't know where to start," she whispered, looking down at her hands. "Start with Tom. Why were you with him?" I pressed, feeling a mix of dread and anger. "We were just friends. It wasn't what you think," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Friends? You were texting him like you were lovers. You lied to me, Sarah." I shot back, my emotions boiling over. "Mark, please, just listen." She raised her voice, a hint of panic in her eyes. The officer's presence reminded me that we weren't alone, but I was too far gone in my emotions. "Why should I believe anything you say? You've lied to me over and over again." I could feel the tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "Because I was scared. You have to understand, things between us, they changed. I didn't know how to talk to you about it," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Changed? You think that justifies cheating on me?" I snapped back, the hurt spilling over. "You could have come to me. We could have worked through it." She looked down, the weight of my words visibly hitting her. "I thought I could handle it. Tom was just someone who paid attention to me, someone I thought I could talk to, but then it got out of hand." "Out of hand? You were having an affair. That's not just out of hand, Sarah, that's betrayal." My voice was rising, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. I know, but it didn't mean anything to me in the way you think it did," she said, tears beginning to spill down her cheeks. "I didn't love him. I was just lost." Lost. The word echoed in my mind, resonating with the pain I felt. "And then what? You end up at his apartment and... He's dead, Sarah. Did you have something to do with it? The accusation slipped out before I could catch myself, a dangerous weight hanging in the air. No, I did, I swear, she cried, shaking her head vehemently. I left before anything happened. I didn't know he was dead until the police called me. Why didn't you come home? Why didn't you call me? My voice softened, the desperation breaking through the anger. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to face you after everything, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The officer cleared his throat, pulling my attention back to him. Mr. Thompson, we need to ask Sarah more questions. If you can step outside for a moment, I nodded, my heart heavy. I stepped into the diner where the atmosphere felt suffocating. I couldn't stand the tension, the uncertainty of what was happening. Every second felt like an eternity as I paced back and forth, wrestling with my own emotions. I knew I was angry, but beneath that anger was fear. Fear for Sarah, fear for our future, fear that I had lost her for good. When the door opened, Officer Jenkins stepped out, looking more serious than before. We're going to need you both to come down to the station for further questioning. There are more details we need to address, he said. Is she under arrest? I asked quickly, my heart racing. Not yet. We just need to clarify a few things, he replied, but the way he said it left me anxious. I walked back into the room, my eyes locking onto Sarah's. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be all right, but the weight of her betrayal hung heavily between us. We were both drowning in uncertainty, and the reality was that I didn't know if I could trust her again. As we made our way to the police station, I felt a mixture of dread and determination. I wanted to get to the bottom of this, to understand what had truly happened. But I also feared what that truth would mean for our relationship. Could I forgive her? And more importantly, should I? The road ahead was murky, and as we drove to the station, I realized I was standing at a crossroad. I had to decide whether to fight for our marriage or cut my losses and walk away. Would the truth set us free, or would it seal our fate forever? The answers felt just out of reach, and all I could do was brace myself for what was to come. The ride to the police station felt interminable. The silence in the car was thick, filled with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. I could sense Sarah's anxiety radiating off her as she stared out the window, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. I wanted to reach out to comfort her, but there was a part of me that felt too raw, too betrayed to even consider it. When we arrived, the atmosphere was tense and cold. The police station was busy, officers moving around, phones ringing, and people waiting. It felt like the kind of place where lives could change in an instant. I took a deep breath as we stepped inside, trying to steel myself for whatever lay ahead. Officer Jenkins met us at the front desk and led us toward an interrogation room. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and the room itself was stark and bare. A small table, 2 chairs, and a single window that felt more like a barrier than a portal to the outside world. As I sat across from Sarah, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both trapped in this nightmare together, even if we were on opposite sides of a chasm that had opened up between us. Let's start from the beginning, Officer Jenkins said, taking a seat. Sarah, we need you to recount everything that happened last night. I watched her as she squared her shoulders, her expression shifting from fear to determination. I was at home and I got a text from Tom. He wanted to meet to talk about us. I didn't plan on going, but I felt like I had to explain myself after everything that happened between us, she said, glancing at me for a moment before turning her gaze back to the officer. Was that the first time you met him since the affair started? He asked, his voice calm and measured. Yes. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I thought maybe we could clear the air. I was confused about what I wanted, and I thought talking to him might help, she replied, her voice steady. Go on, Officer Jenkins prompted, leaning in slightly. I drove to his apartment. When I got there, he seemed angry. He kept asking me why I had been avoiding him and why I hadn't told you about our conversations. I tried to explain that I was trying to end things, but he wouldn't listen, she said, her voice trembling slightly. What happened next? Jenkins urged. I told him I was done, that I wanted nothing to do with him anymore. But he didn't take it well. He started shouting, saying he wouldn't let me go that easily. I was scared. I just wanted to leave, Sarah said, her eyes filling with tears. I turned to walk out, and that's when I heard something like a crash or a thud, but I didn't look back. I just ran out of there. Did you see anyone else in the apartment? Jenkins asked. No, it was just us, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know what to think. I drove home and just froze. I couldn't come back to you after what I had done and how things had spiraled. I didn't know what to say. I felt my heart sink further with each word. The fear in her eyes was palpable, but I couldn't tell if it was fear of the situation or fear of the truth coming out. You should have called me, I said, my voice hoarse with emotion. I could have helped you. I know, she cried, the guilt washing over her. I was scared of how you would react. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't want to be with him either. I thought I could just end it quietly. Officer Jenkins cleared his throat, cutting through the tension. We're going to need to verify your story, Sarah. Do you have any proof of being at Tom's apartment? I don't know, she stammered, panic creeping into her voice. I left my phone charger and my scarf there. I didn't think to take them with me. You left them behind, I said incredulously. Seriously, I wasn't thinking clearly, okay? She snapped, frustration bubbling to the surface. All I could think about was getting out of there. Adieu. You have any other witnesses who can corroborate your whereabouts before or after this incident? Jenkins pressed, his tone unwavering. I was with my friends before I went to Tom, she exclaimed, desperation evident in her voice. I can call them. They'll tell you I had no idea anything was wrong when I left. You should have done that first, Sarah, I interjected, trying to keep my voice steady. If you were telling the truth, you wouldn't be in this situation. I know, she said, her voice breaking. I just didn't think clearly. Jenkins sat back deep in thought. We'll need to contact your friends, but in the meantime, Sarah, I must advise you that you're a person of interest in this case. If you're involved in any way, it's best to be honest with us. Her expression shifted again, the weight of his words crashing down on her. I didn't do anything, I swear. She pleaded, the fear in her voice raw. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, anger, sadness, frustration. The woman I thought I knew was unraveling before my eyes, and I was left to grapple with the pieces. You can't keep lying to yourself, I said quietly, trying to keep my voice calm. If you had nothing to do with it, then this will all blow over, but if you did, I need to know. Mark, please, I didn't kill him, she cried, her eyes wide with panic. I don't even know what happened after I left. I was scared and confused. The officer glanced between us, sensing the tension. We'll do our best to find the truth, he said, his tone more sympathetic now. But Sarah, until we gather all the evidence, I recommend you refrain from discussing this with anyone else. You may need legal representation. The gravity of his words hung in the air. I looked at Sarah, seeing a mixture of fear and guilt etched across her face. It was hard to reconcile the woman I loved with the choices she had made. Did I really want to believe her? Could I trust her again after everything that had happened? As we left the station, I felt as though I was walking a tightrope, balancing between love and betrayal. Sarah stayed close to me, her eyes pleading for understanding, but the chasm between us felt insurmountable. Mark, please, she said softly, breaking the silence as we stepped outside. I need you to believe me. I didn't do anything to hurt anyone. I turned to her, my heart heavy. I want to believe you, Sarah, but you have to understand how hard that is right now. You put us in this situation. We stood there for a moment, surrounded by the chaos of the police station, both of us feeling lost and unsure of what lay ahead. The weight of the unknown loomed large, and as I searched her eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened next would change everything. Would we find a way back to each other, or was this the beginning of the end for us? The car ride back home was tense, silence hanging heavily between us like thick fog. I could feel the weight of Sarah's gaze on me, but I kept my eyes focused on the road, my mind racing with 1,000 questions. Each turn brought me closer to our home, a place that felt more like a prison now than the sanctuary it once was. Mark, she began, her voice tentative, but I cut her off. I need some space, Sarah. I can't think right now, I said, my tone sharper than I intended. The truth was I was overwhelmed. My heart was wrestling with conflicting emotions, anger, sadness, confusion. I didn't want to push her away, but I also didn't know how to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. Please, can we talk about this? She asked, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. What do you want me to say? You cheated on me and now your lover is dead. Everything feels like a nightmare and I don't know how to process it all. I'm not a killer, Mark, I swear. She cried, her eyes glistening with tears. I didn't hurt him, I just wanted to end things between us. You have to believe that. I glanced at her, seeing the fear etched on her face. It's not just about that anymore, Sarah. I can't ignore how deep this goes. As we pulled into the driveway, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. The house loomed ahead, a reminder of everything that had fallen apart. I parked the car and sat there for a moment, my heart racing. I didn't want to go inside, but I knew we had to confront the reality of the situation. We stepped into the house and the familiar surroundings felt foreign. The silence was deafening. I could feel the weight of the betrayal lingering in the air, a dark cloud I couldn't shake off. I moved to the kitchen, needing some space to think, but Sarah followed closely behind. Mark, please, she said, her voice softening. I know this is hard, but we have to stick together. I need you. I turned to face her, frustration boiling over. You say you need me, but you put me in this position. You lied to me, and now I don't know if I can trust anything you say. Her lips trembled as she struggled to hold herself together. I know I messed up, I see that now, but I'm scared. I feel like everything is crashing down around us and I don't know how to fix it. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but it was hard to separate that from the hurt she had caused. I don't even know what fixing this looks like anymore, I admitted, my voice heavy. You have to understand, I can't just pretend this didn't happen. I'm not asking you to pretend. I just want a chance to explain myself, to show you I can do better, Sarah pleaded. I rubbed my temples, feeling the tension building. But how can I believe you? You've been lying to me for who knows how long. And now Tom is dead. This isn't just an affair, it's a criminal investigation. Please, let's just try to talk this through, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I sighed, feeling exhaustion wash over me. Okay, let's talk, but I need you to be honest with me. No more lies. As we settled onto the couch, I took a deep breath, preparing for the conversation that could change everything. Tell me what really happened between you and Tom. Start from the beginning. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I met Tom at a work event about 6 months ago. He was charming and it felt good to have someone pay attention to me. I thought it was harmless flirting at first, but then it escalated. Escalated how? I pressed, needing to know the details. We started texting and before I knew it we were meeting up, she admitted, shame flooding her face. I didn't want to hurt you, but I felt so lost and disconnected from you. I thought I could have the best of both worlds. Best of both worlds, I echoed, incredulous. You thought you could cheat on me and still come home like nothing was wrong. I didn't think it through. I was caught up in the excitement, but it got out of hand. I thought I could just walk away when I was ready, she said, desperation in her voice. Did you ever think about what that would do to me? I asked, my voice rising again. Did you ever consider that I might find out? I was stupid, Mark. I thought I could keep it a secret. I didn't want to lose you, she confessed, her voice breaking. But then I got trapped in my own lies and I didn't know how to get out. And then what? You just walk away from Tom and he ends up dead, I said incredulously, the logical part of my brain struggling to make sense of it all. I didn't know he was dead until the police called, I swear, she pleaded, her eyes wide with fear. I had no idea what was going to happen. Do you think I'm just going to take your word for it after everything? I shot back, my frustration boiling over. I couldn't believe I was in this position, grappling with the truth of her betrayal while trying to navigate the possibility of her being involved in something far worse. I don't know what else to do, Mark. I just want to fix this. I don't want to lose you, she cried, her voice breaking as the tears flowed freely down her cheeks. I felt the walls closing in around me, the weight of her words pressing down. I need time, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I need time to think about everything. She nodded, her expression filled with despair. I understand. I just hope you'll see that I never meant for any of this to happen. As the night wore on, we sat in silence, the weight of our situation hanging heavily in the air. I felt lost, stuck between love and betrayal, between the woman I once adored and the stranger she had become. The shadows deepened around us, and I realized I had a choice to make. I could either walk away from everything we had built, or I could try to find a way back to her. But what that path would look like, and whether it was a road I wanted to travel, was still unclear. In the depths of my heart, I knew one thing: the truth would come out, and whatever lay ahead would determine the fate of our relationship. I just hoped we could weather the storm together, if only we could find a way to navigate the treacherous waters that lay ahead. But as I sat there, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both standing on the edge of a precipice, and one misstep could send us crashing down into the abyss. The night dragged on, the silence in the house growing heavier with every passing minute. I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me like a fog I couldn't escape. Sarah sat across from me, her eyes red and puffy from crying, and I knew we were both facing the emotional fallout of her choices. The reality of our situation was like a gaping wound, raw and painful, and I wasn't sure how to heal it. The next day, I had to make a decision. I needed clarity, and the only way to find it was to confront the reality of Sarah's connection to Tom's death. I couldn't ignore the fact that her affair had spiraled into something so much darker. As I sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in front of me, I knew what I had to do. "Sarah," I said, breaking the heavy silence that hung in the air. She looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and dread. "I'm going to see Tom's family. I need to know what happened and what they know." Her expression shifted, fear flashing across her face. "Mark, please. Don't do that. They're going to think I'm involved." "I need answers, Sarah. I can't just sit here and pretend everything is okay," I replied, my voice steady. "I need to hear their side of the story. I need to understand if you really had nothing to do with this." "I promise you, Mark, I wouldn't hurt anyone," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "I know you're scared, but I have to do this," I said firmly. "I need the truth." The drive to Tom's family's house felt interminable, my mind racing with conflicting thoughts. I replayed every conversation I'd had with Sarah, every moment that had led us here. I wondered how I would face them, how I would explain the betrayal and the chaos that had ensued. When I arrived, I was greeted by a grief-stricken woman who introduced herself as Tom's mother. Her eyes were red from crying, and the weight of loss hung heavily in the air. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said, my voice shaky. "Thank you," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just can't believe he's gone, it's all so unreal." I took a deep breath, gathering my courage. "I need to know what happened. Tom was involved with my wife, and I'm struggling to understand how this could have happened." Her eyes widened in surprise, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. "Sarah, I didn't know he was involved with anyone," she said, confusion clouding her features. "I need to know the details about his death, anything that could shed light on what happened," I pressed, feeling the urgency of the moment. She sighed deeply, her expression turning somber. "They found him at his apartment. It appears he was involved in something shady, but I have no idea what. He had been acting strangely for weeks, and I feared he was getting mixed up with the wrong crowd." "Did he mention anyone, any threats?" I asked, desperate for information. She shook her head. "He never spoke of anyone specifically, but I know he was afraid. He mentioned feeling like someone was watching him." I thought it was just paranoia, but her voice trailed off, and I could see the pain etched across her face. "Do you think my wife was in danger?" I asked, my heart racing. "I can't say for sure, but if they were involved, it's possible she could have been caught in the crossfire," she replied, her expression grave. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I had hoped for answers, but now I was left with even more questions. "Do you think he could have been killed because of something he was involved in?" "It's possible. He had a few friends who weren't exactly law-abiding," she said, her voice shaky. "I'd be careful if I were you." As I left Tom's family's house, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was still deeply caught up in something dangerous, and the thought terrified me. I needed to confront her again, but this time it would be different. I wouldn't just accept her word, I would demand the truth. Back at home, I found her sitting on the couch, her hands trembling in her lap. "You went to see them, didn't you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I did," I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. "I learned some things, Sarah, things that make me believe you could be in real danger." Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing her face. "What do you mean?" "Tom's mother said he was scared. He felt like he was being watched and involved in something dangerous. I need to know if you ever felt the same way. Was there anyone else involved?" I swear I didn't know anything. I didn't want to be involved with him like that. She protested, her voice rising in panic. Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you come to me when all this started? I pressed, frustration boiling beneath the surface. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could break it off without it blowing up in our faces. She cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. Now it's blown up, Sarah. The question is, what do we do next? I said, my voice rising again. I want to fix this, she said, desperation filling her eyes. I want to show you that I can be better. I never wanted any of this to happen. Fixing this isn't just about us, Sarah. It's about your safety too. You. Be honest. If there's something you're hiding, you have to tell me now, I said, looking deep into her eyes. I promise I've told you everything I know, she pleaded. I didn't think it could escalate like this. The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I had to make a choice. Was I strong enough to forgive her, to fight for us even after everything that had happened? I wanted to believe in the possibility of healing, of rebuilding what we had lost. Okay, I said finally, my heart heavy. I'm willing to fight for us, but we have to do this together. You need to be open with me about everything. She nodded, relief flooding her features. I will, I promise. As we sat there, I realized that the road ahead would be difficult. Trust would be a fragile thing, and we would have to navigate the aftermath of her choices carefully. But in that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could find a way back to each other, one small step at a time. The journey would be long and fraught with challenges, but I knew one thing: we would face it together. Whatever shadows lay ahead, we would confront them, armed with the truth and a desire to heal. And in that moment, for the first time since everything had spiraled out of control, I felt the faintest stirrings of hope. We could rebuild, but it would take time, honesty, and a commitment to facing the darkness together. The road would be rocky, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could find our way back to the love we once shared.